It's happening in New York, New Jersey, or Long Island. Hear about it with Joe Piscopo. Mornings, 6 to 10 on AM 970. The Answer.
Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. The party's on.
So happy. Al, you're in a good mood. Only because Jeannie's in the studio, you're in a good mood.
We had a very nice discussion about education.
How could you not have a great discussion with Jeanne Zaino? Professor Jeanne Zaino with us, joining us live on the air. Thank you for coming in, Jeannie.
Thank you for having me. I've wanted to make one of these Tuesdays where you're simulcasting forever. Frank wouldn't invite me, but now that he's in, thank you, Frank, for finally inviting me. I wanted to come. I begged him. I had to pay him off.
So do you have classes?
He's expensive.
Later? You have classes later?
No, we are in final week, so we start finals tomorrow. So done with classes, yay, and finals tomorrow.
I should come observe a class. I mean,
yeah, you should come teach a class with me. Listen, I know.
Jeannie, he'd last 20 seconds.
Listen,
20 seconds.
I think that's a great
Maybe
idea.
30.
I've got an offer. Next semester, I have a class on media and politics.
Sure.
Who better to come address these young minds?
So there.
Can you come? Seriously,
Yes.
You'll come?
Yes, I will
Because
be there.
this is like, now Hannah and her sisters are still waiting for you to show up at one of our powwows.
I am so there
You think
as well.
I forgot?
I am so there as well. Jeannie's got. How many sisters do you have?
I have 5 sisters.
Oh,
4
yes.
older, 1 younger.
Frank will show up for that one.
Frank,
You
you
got-
come.
come on.
I'm in. I'm there.
We gotta do that. This is great.
And I would be so impressive to them if you ever showed up. And if Frank showed up, they'd all think.
We are there. We are there. We are so there. You are so much fun, and you're so bright on politics. So help me out here, and we know each other well enough because I need to be consoled on this. I support the president. I saw him on Saturday morning at that Cipriani fundraiser. He's not going anywhere.
No,
he is on fire.
Yes,
he's focused and on fire. I'm
he
telling you
is
right now.
amped up.
Yeah,
as
and
they
and
say.
I'm telling you, I got no skin in the game. You know, but we don't get invited to the White House. There's no skin in the game. I'm just seeing a guy who's in control and fired up.
Yeah.
They don't like that when you say that. But he is on top of everything here. But then, and now with the Supreme Court ruling yesterday, the travel ban, boom, as it should be, I think. Then he goes, and in the middle of it all, now I'm going to support Judge Roy Moore. And those of us who think he's maybe Judge Roy Moore, disregard anything that's happened over the last couple of months. Just he's a little too severe. You go, but I understand the president's business sense in that.
Yeah.
But what are your feelings toward the president actually supporting Roy Moore?
Yeah. So, and by the way, that was a big win in the court yesterday, just to go back to that for a second, but not unexpected, because throughout American history, the president has always had the prerogative when it came to protecting our borders. So I think regardless of the makeup of the court at all, they would have sided with any president on this. And I think that's as it should be.
Sense.
And it is common sense. And we should say it's not a ban, it's a pause. So we should say to rethink. But in terms of Roy Moore, I'm not sure that the president had, there were a couple options. One is he could have stayed quiet and said, we'll let the citizens of Alabama, decide.
Yes.
And the other one is he could have gone with his party. And I think one of the things that people forget is the president is also the leader of his party. That's one of the many roles they have. Yeah. And if you are the leader of the party and your party has nominated somebody, if you find them that objectionable, you're going to have to take the party and move away from them. He wasn't able to do that in Alabama. And so I think really it left him with no options, on top of which, and I think he said this, he just narrowly got that tax bill through. He is going to have a tougher time legislatively next year, going up to the midterms, and then going forward. If they lose the Senate, for instance, that is going to, seriously impact his ability to pass his agenda. So I think, you look at that, and you're leader of this party, and his focus is on making changes for the American public. He's got to get a Republican in that seat. And if that's Roy Moore, I think he's going to have to, do it. And by the way, we saw Mitch McConnell do the same thing yesterday as well. Basically say, pull back on his, lack of support, and the Republican Party is now back in Alabama.
Yeah, look at that, Jeannie. But as a professional woman and in the workplace, and always see all these allegations going in, and now you really have been so successful. But then you see a guy that had all these sexual allegations thrown at him, and Roy Moore, and everybody else for that matter. But let's say the politician, as a woman, do you go, oh, wait a minute, do you believe the woman? Do you know? Because we're all confused. We don't know what to say. As we sit here, I'm afraid if I say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing.
HR.
Yeah, really. I mean, you don't know
And
what
I
to do.
shouldn't joke about that.
No, but really, and it's like, and I'm the father of 3 daughters. We've always talked about this, and I love where the pendulum is going because it will protect my daughters. That's really what I think about now. But is it too far at this point?
Well, I think there is some fear about, there being some kind of retribution in some of this. And I think there is some fear. And, one story that turns out not to be true can, unfortunately, for all the stories that are true, and so many of these stories, if not all of them are true, you can end up with women who should be believed not being believed. So I think, all of these allegations, I agree with you. I want there to be change in the workplace. And, you feel horrible for people who have suffered like this for so long. But I do think there's got to be a process in place by which these things are adjudicated. You're going to come into my class in media. I also teach law. So you can come into my law class, Joe. But we do have to have a process in place by which to adjudicate these claims, and you have to do so in a careful, thoughtful manner so that you are holding people accountable who wronged people as they should be, and not going to the extreme of, this kind of what becomes something of a witch hunt, which is the fear. And so with somebody like Roy Moore, it becomes all that much more difficult in the political arena. Of course, we saw this with Bill Clinton. We see it with Conyers. We see it, with your friend Al Franken. We see it, with the... I think, it's like because you're a comedian, I think everybody is your friend if they're a comedian.
I always said, I've said this so many times in the air, I have such I'm in awe because, we replaced the original cast of Saturday Night Live, and Al was one of the guys with Lorne Michaels that really built that whole dynasty with his former late, great Tom Davis.
And look what he's done. I mean, he's had a tremendous career in politics. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Well, does he step down? Does Conyers step down?
I think, this is where I think you really need the House and the Senate to hold ethics investigations and to look into these charges. And that's not a criminal act, but that would be an act of saying you either have to be fined, you have to be held responsible, removed from your leadership posts, as we've seen, or, unfortunately, removed from the House and the Senate. That is one of the jobs of Congress, by the way. They do police themselves. So I think politically that's got to happen. And then, of course, they go back, and if they want to run again or their constituents choose to put them back in, that's up to the voters to decide. But I do think you need to have a full accounting of these things.
But how do they do it? And Jeanne, I know you well enough. Forgive me. I feel comfortable enough with you to say they grope, and I'm embarrassed a little bit to bring it up, but while we're on the radio, they're groping, and then they admit they're groping.
And
if you admit it, get the heck out of there, in my opinion. If you admit it and you say, yeah, I did that, well, then you step the heck down.
You have to step down. But some of the stories, and I mean, we've all been reading them, they're so disgusting and hard to imagine that adult people are doing this in the workplace. I mean, for all of the people victimized by this who have come out, and then unfortunately those who have not come out and won't because they don't want to go through the gauntlet of this, the stories are horrifying. I mean, I don't even want to name the names of some of these, but we've all read them in the Post, in the Times. They are really disgusting, and you wonder, where were these people's mothers? I mean, who taught them? Not that you can blame the mothers, but where are these?
No, but it's a great point.
Who taught these people? And it's really frustrating. But I guess what we're learning is it has to do with an exercise of power and this power imbalance that occurs.
You never experienced that, though. Something tells me. Like I say to Debbie, she's not here today, but I say to Debbie Duhayman, I've talked to other.
I mentioned with Debbie.
Yeah, and I've talked to other professional women who work like that. You ain't gonna get away with that, and I can't imagine.
No, that's why I work out, Joe. I'm very, very strong. I can do push-ups.
I mean,
but it's nothing to do with that. But I think part of it is the luck of who you happen to be working with and working for. I mean, I'm lucky. I've experienced things, but nothing to that extreme. Nothing I ever had to report or anything like that. But, I think a lot of it is just who you happen to be working with. And unfortunately, the corporate environment, which allows this kind of thing to go forward. I mean, I'm not sure why Matt Lauer, for instance, needed a lock under his desk to lock the door. That's something that shouldn't happen. Just like in schools where I am, you should have glass on the door. The door should be open if you're having a meeting with students. These are commonplace practices that are put in place by the environment and the corporation, and they don't allow certain kinds of things. And then, of course, sexual harassment training, which we all have to go through and should go through now.
Yeah, it's amazing where we are.
Where we
isn't
are.
Isn't that crazy?
And so, do you, just as an aside, I was talking to, do you think Time Magazine is going to put the Me Too movement on the cover this year?
Oh, you know what? I bet you they do.
I was thinking.
Is there still a possibility that they put the president on?
Yes, he's in the running,
right?
They're announcing it tomorrow.
Okay.
They're announcing tomorrow, right? And I was saying I like the Saudi prince, although I don't think that he's going to make it because it's in the United States and it's later in the year.
Yeah.
But somebody said the Me Too, and I think that there may be a possibility there because, as you mentioned, this is kind of from start to finish this year defined the year to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, honestly, we're also saying, how do you not put Donald Trump on the cover? Because every conversation you have ultimately turns to Donald Trump,
Well, the interesting one, I don't mean to interrupt, the interesting one that they're considering is Kim Jong-un.
Yes.
On the cover of
Well,
Time.
don't forget, Ayatollah Khomeini was on the cover of
Yes.
Time
That's
magazine.
true.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
understand.
so was
that.
Hitler and Stalin. It's about newsworthiness. It's not about
But who is
virtue.
more newsworthy than Donald
That's
Trump?
right.
I mean, I
Amen.
don't know. You like him, hate him. Who is more newsworthy than the president
You're
right
right.
now? I don't know that you get away with,
Jeannie, Congress passes tax reform, right? Is this going to hurt or help the midterms, do you think, for the Republicans?
I think it's going to help, and I think that's why we saw them be able to pull together those senators who may otherwise have gone another way, because I think they knew that if they didn't pass this, they were going to go into the midterms with some real problems. I think it helps the Republicans, and, I don't think we're going to feel the effects, if there are any negative effects that people are talking about. I think that will probably hit just before, right after the midterm. So I think for Republicans, this is a huge win. Obviously it's still got to be passed, but I think there's no question. And, the hope on their part would be they do it before Christmas. And this conference committee, or if they can avoid a conference committee, is able to move forward and get this thing to the president for signature. It's a huge win for the president and the Republicans. I mean, tax overhauls are hard to come by. I don't think people thought they could do it. And maybe this gives them momentum to tackle things like immigration, infrastructure, although those become harder as you move into January, because then it's going to be our year all about the midterm, Joe.
I know. I keep thinking
We love it.
So good. No, I have to ask you before you go, and
Are you kicking me out, Joe Piscopo?
No. I want you to.
Al, can I stay? Frank?
No.
Did somebody bring you a gift?
They did.
Tom DiNapoli.
Tom DiNapoli brought me a gift. And excuse me. Watch this, boys. I just happen to have toffee from, you ready? Robert Wagner. RJ, my friend. Married to Jill St. John. I'm just saying. Yes,
Heart to heart, Robert Wagner? You know everybody, Joe Piscopo.
he's a buddy. I've known RJ.
Was he sitting in this chair?
Yes, Gene. He was sitting in that chair. He was.
No, are
if
you
it
kidding?
impresses,
He was not.
if it impresses
Frank.
you, yes, he was right in that chair. Oh, yes.
Keep that voice in the studio for months
Corey
now.
Apple. Wait, no. He called in. He is such a great guy. And I was at a restaurant a couple
Heart
weeks
to
ago.
Heart was one of my favorite shows growing up.
He is.
What car did he drive? Didn't he have a fancy car in that show?
Oh God, you are
you
good.
too young
Val
to
doesn't
know this show?
Yeah, I'm
Does
too young.
nobody
Thank
know
you.
this
You're
show?
too kind. We'll take. But he said I've known him like so long, and I know him in the circle that Frank Sinatra used to travel in. I was never on the
course you
inside.
do.
He was on the inside. I was on the peripheral on the outside. And back in the day, but it was like
He had a
RJ.
Mercedes 300 TD diesel wagon.
There it is. There it is.
Ooh, my
I had to look it up.
favorite kind besides
So
a
if-
Toyota.
If you don't look like you eat toffee, but it's here from Robert
Did
Wagner.
Robert Wagner touch it, or did he just give it to you?
He ordered it
Oh,
personally.
he ordered it.
He did order it personally, right?
That is so impressive. But can I just say,
Please.
because this morning I'm getting ready to come and I say, oh my goodness, every time I go there, people are showering you guys with gifts, and I always show up empty-handed.
No.
So,
Your mere presence
no.
in the studio.
Okay, next time, Frank, I'm bringing
boys,
a gift.
Your mere presence in the studio is a gift to us.
If Robert Wagner
It's a
can
gift.
bring toffee, I can bring toffee. Damn, Robert Wagner. He showed me up.
I have to call. I have to give
Will
him
you
a call.
tell him
after
I
the show.
love? Oh, we love him.
I could call
The
RJ
Hannah and
for
her
it.
sisters
Hey,
used to be big
hey,
into that show.
It's a great line, isn't it? You go, hey, I know Robert Wagner. I like that.
That's better than walking around with a dog on the street or little kids, right? You should
it's one of those
you should
mornings.
just have a cut-up of Robert Wagner
Jeannie,
and his Mercedes.
Will Joe Biden jump in? Do you think Biden will go in 2020?
I think he desperately wants to, don't you?
Yes, I
mean,
do.
I think he is chomping at the bit. I think he's kicking himself that he stayed out, of course, his son and everything that happened.
Yeah.
But I think he would really, really like to. I don't know if his wife would kill him if he did. I mean, you can imagine this poor woman must be like,
oh my
no.
gosh, yeah.
But I think he really wants to. I think Elizabeth Warren is chomping at the bit to get out there, and I think the president signaled that he sees her as a threat the other day.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be fascinating to see. I think we're going to see maybe Cory Booker and some of these other people get in there. So it's going to be fascinating.
They'll make a move, and I'm trying to think who else might step in there.
I doubt Kasich will come in as a Democrat, but I certainly don't think our guy can go in as a Republican.
And Higginlooper
Higginlooper, yeah, which would be fascinating.
Republican and Democrat together.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can't today beat Donald Trump.
You can't. I mean, an incumbent president, it's going to be really, really tough. And that's why I told you, that was the little scoop I had, that his friends and his advisors are telling him, you got to go independent. You're never going to, he will not get through the gauntlet of the Republican primaries, which is why he'd have to step out of that. But running as an independent is so tough in this country.
Just the other day, the president, and I think it's okay I say this, $6 million one day in a matter of hours he raises. People are behind him. People don't, and I'm no skin in the game. Yeah. But you can't deny that, Jeannie, right?
Yeah. And that's where I think it's been interesting to see the differential between the fundraising numbers between the Republicans and the Democrats as we go into 2018. Yeah. Democrats are going to have to pick those up because the map does not look good for Democrats, although there is a lot of energy there. So it's going to be a question of, can they get the money they need to get turnout?
We're bringing nobody in the background, the Democrat side, that we're not thinking of. Somebody, you are great at this, at picking up somebody that might be running that we don't know of right now. I can't think one of the Castro guys from Texas. One
of the Castro. Yeah, I think that's probably a long shot. I think they're more likely to be a vice presidential running mate kind of thing. Yeah. But I think the top ones are Biden right now, Elizabeth Warren.
Hillary will be back.
Hillary may be back. Oh my God! Could you imagine a redo? Maybe Robert Wagner will run. I'm so excited, and I'm pretending he sat in the seat. By the way,
we're going to share Robert Wagner's toffee with Jeanne Zaino. You're the best. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
We love
so
you.
Great to be here. Can I come back another Tuesday? You
could stay like here the whole show forever.
Frank, I'll send you some
we'll
toffee.
Keep you before Al.
Yeah. Really. I mean, honestly. Curtis Ellis is going to join us. Mike Gallagher's on the show. Alan Dershowitz on the show as well. 8:22 with Piscopo in the morning. Thank you, Dr. Jeanne Zaino.
Everybody knows this guy. No, everybody knows he can do a radio show. Joe Piscopo. Mornings, 6 to 10 on AM 970. The Answer.